Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Dylan Hysen, and this is the first of my new Dylan Discourse podcasts, where I walk you through some sort of subject solo, just me today, while I'm driving to or from work. So, a few things about this new format. First of all, it's just me. I realize that it's more of a monologuing, less of a discussion, a different type of format here. Second, the sound, you can expect the sound quality on these to be less than it would be on our other podcasts. If this is your first time listening here, the sound quality is not consistent with what you can expect from the Overly Animated Podcast. I am recording into my car's hands-free Bluetooth microphone. You'll be able to hear the engine. You'll be able to hear turn signals. This is the best that I could get it. If I really tried, I could bring my professional microphone in the car with a laptop, but that's a lot, and I want this to be kind of like an easy type thing for me to do. This is not in place of any podcast material. This is just an additional one every week. I want to do more. We've had a little bit of a decrease when I've started working full-time, so this is a good way to get out some more content while still being very easy for me to record. So, Dylan Discourse, that name is ironic. I'm attempting to use Discourse ironically there. It alliterates it, and that's the best I got. If you have a better name suggestion, tell me. So today, this is an off-topic Dylan Discourse, so we're going to start off strong here with something completely not related to animation. I'm going to walk you through the Oscar Best Picture category. So, the Oscars are this Sunday at, I believe, 8:30 on ABC, 8:30 Eastern, and the Best Picture category is a very interesting one this year. I have seen all 8 of the Best Picture nominees. Yes, I genuinely have. And I will walk you through each one I'm attempting to do 3 different things here. 1, I'm going to give you a general overview of the film. I assume most of you have not seen all of them. 2, I'm going to give you a who's going to win, like that type of thing, like a Oscar prognostication overview of the category. This is one of the closest Best Picture years in recent memory. I'm going to tell you who's most likely to win, what the state of the race is, stuff like that. If you have an Oscar poll, this will be a good one to listen to for that. I'm not some Oscar predictions expert, but this has been a hobby of mine following this for a while, so I have some level of knowledge for this. Number 3, and most interesting, I'm going to give you my opinion of each film. I have seen all of them, and I've liked some a lot more than others. I'm going to tell you which are the best ones, which one I would recommend you seeing. So I'm going to go in order from most likely to win the category from least. But before that, I want to get into kind of why should you care about the Oscars and the Oscar Best Picture category. There's a lot of pushback against the Oscars this year, rightfully so. The general thing I want to say is, if you don't want to care, then don't care about this. Like, that's a perfectly legitimate opinion. There's no inherent meaning to award shows. They're all essential. They only have meaning if you imbue them with meaning. I personally believe the Oscars are by far the most legitimate of the major award shows, like the Grammys are a joke, although they're the most entertaining to watch, maybe. The Emmys, I think, are not very good most years. They're pretty out of touch with basically, like, even general television criticism or fans of TV shows. They're just their own entity. The Golden Globes are 100% illegitimate, and you should not care about them. It's a group of 50 people who aren't part of the Academy. The Oscars are a group of 6,000 people who, in theory, people who actually make films. Now, that wasn't true potentially until recently, when they cut out a lot of people who've been retired for a while and aren't actually in the industry anymore. That's a big reason why the category is going to be, or the Oscar voting body is going to be a lot more diverse now. And as I turn onto 95 North, the quality is going to get a little bit worse as the engine revs up, I think. I'm not sure how this is going to sound, honestly, so we'll discover this together. So, all 20 acting nominees this year were white. I'm not going to spend, I could spend 2 hours talking about this, I could. But that's not necessarily the purpose of this one. It could be a different Dylan Discourse if people are interested. I could try to get into that a little bit. That's not necessarily, that's even a subject I'm less of an expert on for other reasons, because I'm white, than even this subject matter. But that's, of course, I'm talking about the most difficult one as I'm changing 5 lanes to the left. But this, basically, this is a good reason not to care about this year's Oscar ceremony. It's a good reason. There were several great non-white performances that happened this year that I saw that were not recognized by these 20 nominees. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the nominees are some level of random, no matter what. The top performances are going to get nominated, and then there's some level left in each category, and it's a little bit random. But the fact of the matter is, 2 years in a row now, we've had no non-white nominees. That's not coincidence. It's a result of a very old white voting body. I mean, personally, I've not seen Idris Elba in Beasts of No Nation. People love that performance. That was nominated for basically every other award. The two major snubs that I would have clearly nominated are Michael B. Jordan for Creed, and which I love that movie, and blanking on the other one. Here's the thing. I have no outline. This is just me talking to nobody while I'm driving, so I'm going to forget a lot of things. Benicio del Toro for Sicario. That's the other big one. That would have been a supporting actor nominee. Those are two ones where it's a little questionable why. I mean, the supporting actor is that category. It's like, why did anyone get nominated? But it's a problem. And it manifests in this Best Picture category as well, because Straight Outta Compton was not nominated. If you want to get past race, too, there was, in terms of sexuality, Carol was not nominated. These are two movies that were nominated for every other precursor for the Best Picture category, right? So those are kind of shocks. I've not seen Compton. I have seen Carol. I didn't think it was incredibly deserving personally, but so were other movies in this category. But yeah, it's just all the white straight movies about men got nominated. All of these movies, except for one, are very male-centric as well. It's a reflection of the voting body. It's not all the voting body's fault. I actually think primarily at fault here is the industry, because the quote-unquote awards movies are the ones that are these male, white, straight films, right? And the pushback you'll see from is that the Oscars nominate the most deserving movies, and those happen to be the ones that are the white ones. Should we not nominate the most deserving movies? And obviously that's just idiotic, because it completely ignores the societal kind of promoting of awards films. That's the thing. Awards films aren't awards films because they're the best films of the year. Now, I think the Oscars do a better job at actually recognizing the best of the year than any other category, as I said, than any other award show. But it's still, there's awards movies that are only awards movies because studios promote them as such. They have to come out at a certain time of the year. They have to have that's the thing. If you make that argument, you don't understand how much campaigning there is for these. You have to have a extensive awards campaign for your films. Films don't get nominated without awards campaigns, never. So films are only awards films because that's what they're promoted as, and they're only promoting the white male straight films, right? Just because that's what they see as legitimate. So it's all crap. That being said, I watch. That's not a contradictory to what I said before. But even with that, I do watch these Oscar nominees every year. Personally, why do I watch all the Oscar films? I think it's a good way to for me to check out some of the best films of the year, and it branches me into finding other ones that weren't nominated, stuff like that. It's also just exciting to see the Best Picture race. Like I said, I do think this correlates to a lot of the best films of the year, and I think that they've generally nominated some of the best that I've seen. But again, fault of mine, I'm probably watching too many of these white films, right? So I can't provide a legitimate perspective from that angle. So spent like 5 minutes on that or something, but that's not an easy, it's not a concise answer. But basically, it's a problem in the entire industry, and so the thing is, like, that doesn't mean that these 8 films shouldn't be considered for Best Picture. Of course not, and that's not even, like, saying that as a counter argument is not even a point. It's not a counter argument. It's just something. So basically, I'm like, okay, this is what we have. I'm going to evaluate these. These are not my 8 best films of the year. I mean, if you're looking for more diversity, Creed would have been in my 8 best films of the year. There had been animated films in my best 8 films of the year, right? Like, probably more female-centric ones. I'm not sure, honestly. I'd have to take a look at my list. But yeah, it's so this is what we have. So I'm gonna go take you through the race as it currently is. I'm not making a moral judgment about these. To a certain extent, I am legitimizing it by talking about it. But so if you want to make that criticism, I think that's fair. Okay, so let me get into again films by likelihood to win. Oh, okay. So again, before we get to that. Still 45 minutes on my trip, so plenty of time. Is loud truck next to me. Is that this is the most wide open Best Picture race in quite a while because the 3 main Oscar precursor Guild Awards were split between 3 different movies. This is the first time this has happened since again, no outline. I think 2004, 2005, 2003, something like that. The 3 Guild precursors are the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Screen Actors Guild Awards. So the Producers Guild right now is the most predictive one historically. If you look statistically, it's been the most predictive, and it is the only one of the 3 that emulates the Oscars preferential ballot system. That is actually very meaningful in terms of trying to predict it, because basically the winner of this is not based on just first place votes. It's based off of first, second, third. It's like 5 points to your first, 5 points to your first place on your ballot, second, 3 points to your second, 2 points to your third. You know, I don't know if those are the exact numbers, but it's that type of thing. So the general thing you should know from that is that films everyone agrees are good have a higher chance of winning than films half of the people think are great and the other half think suck, right? So you'll see this trend. Our 3 nominees are ones that basically everyone likes, not necessarily ones like some of the ones at the bottom that have no chance, that some people like a lot and others don't. So the Producers Guild is the only one that emulates this preferential ballot system, and the Producers Guild, in a shock, gave it to The Big Short, which is a shock because it's a super non-traditional narrative in terms of how Adam McKay directed that, and not one that receiving a lot of awards hype, and also just not a typical Academy film, in quotes, right? So, that won the preferential ballot system. It's in some ways considered a favorite. Winning the Directors Guild, which was the most recent one to give out the award, was The Revenant. The second year win in a row for Inarritu, and that is another one that's highly correlated prediction-wise. The SAG Award, I think, is the least of the 3 statistically correlated predictive, but it has the highest number of Academy voters voting in it. Actors are a very large part of the Academy, and the SAG Award was won by Spotlight. So those are your 3 contenders for the award. Any other film basically cannot win. But because it was so stratified, you can consider other general crowd-pleasing films. There's basically 2 others. So there's basically 5 that have a chance here. Maybe you could make a case for Mad Max as 6th. But really, it would be a shock if one of the 3 didn't win. And so which of the 3 is it? I think I'm going to recommend 2 websites for general Oscar prediction. The first is Variety's In Contention blog, run by Christopher Tapley, and looked up beforehand, so I remember. And he previously ran that blog on HitFix and moved over to Variety this year. He has rankings in terms of likelihood for every single category. He's generally fairly accurate to the extent that anyone can be, and he predicts. He predicts The Big Short as the favorite because he is very big on the Producers Guild being the most predictive one, the only one that emulates the preferential ballot system. Here's the thing, if you're going to look historically, this is probably very boring to some people. You can skip ahead to me talking about the movies. If you're going to look historically at which is most predictive, It's as the 538 model does, which I'll talk about in a second. It's not a good correlation because the Oscars have changed how the Best Picture category works. There's more nominees now, and they use a preferential ballot system. They didn't do that before. So if you're looking at historical trends, it's not a good idea because making a model based purely on that, purely on data, the data is not correlated. The data is for a different award. The 5-picture. I don't know if there was a preferential ballot system then. I assume not. I assume some type of different system in the past. So now it's different, and he thinks that because of this, even though The Big Short only won this one award, I won the only one that's set up like the Oscars. So The Big Short there. The second site I'd recommend is 538 Statistical Oscar Model. 538 does a lot of statistical political analysis, as you know them for, and a bunch of other stuff now. Their Oscar model assigns point values to every major precursor. Not only do they look at the 3 that I talked about, they also look at the BAFTA, which was won by The Revenant. They look at the Golden Globe, I think was won by The Revenant. I don't even remember. I think looking at the Golden Globe is a really bad idea because the voting body overlap is 0. So I think that's just a bad idea. And they look at other ones too. So their overall prediction is The Revenant, although it's very close. Basically, The Big Short's won the most important one. The Revenant's won more than The Big Short, and then Spotlight's also won one. So my feeling, I think, is that you shouldn't go purely by the statistical model. But the first one I'm going to talk about, what my pick would be for the ceremony, would be The Revenant. I think The Revenant is slightly more likely to win than The Big Short. I also think Spotlight has a very big chance because I think it's more generally crowd-pleasing than The Big Short. So, The Revenant, I feel like it has a lot of people are going to be voting towards the end of when the award is giving out. Ballots closed Tuesday, Monday, I think, and and people are going to see The Revenant getting all the hype recently. For some reason, a lot of people seem to be buying into this movie. So let me give you a walkthrough. It's super long kind of experience of super visual type film, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. He's going to win Best Picture this year for the Best Actor this year for this film. Even though I don't think his performance is super great, he certainly endured a lot for the performance. The problem is his character has not a lot of substance to it. Basically, what I think of this film is that the characterization and narrative are both extremely weak. They're not weak because they're bad, they're weak because this film does not care about characterization or narrative. That's just not something that it attempted to do. And what it's really attempting to do is tell this like revenge story, just through very harsh survival story. It's really just a survival drama tension type film, and it's trying to tell it through raw violence and just whatever emotions you experience watching it. So, something I wanted to mention before I got into each specific film. I think all 8 of these films are good. I think that these were some good choices. I would have nominated different ones, obviously, but unlike past years, there's none of these films which I would categorize as bad. I think all 8 are genuinely good films. The Revenant's one of my least favorite, and I'm talking about it now. I'm someone who prioritizes narrative and characterization basically above all else in films, and this movie is super lacking in any of the two. It's long and a long movie without any concrete characters or plots. The plot is super simplistic. None of the characters are super sympathetic. There's nothing really. There's nothing, no one to root for. There's no one to care about. I didn't care about any characters in this. A standout scene was the final scene, which I'm not. Oh yeah. Oh dang it! I should have said this before, but no spoilers for any of the films in this podcast. Maybe I'll try to insert that in. I'll edit it, but yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything for any of the films. You can watch this even if you haven't seen any of them. Yeah, I thought that final scene was really well shot and really tense and stuff. The whole movie's tense. That's one of the words I was looking for. And I don't know. This movie's just not that great. It's okay. I didn't think DiCaprio's performance was much of anything, honestly. I don't buy into the whole he deserves an Oscar type thing. I think that's largely spun by people who are personal fans of him and not are necessarily objectively analyzing his work. 538 ran a great piece this week analyzing whether DiCaprio really deserves his Oscar. And they said that they basically analyzed it. There are like 50 other people who had also been nominated 3 times who hadn't won, and he evaluated by Rotten Tomatoes score and who's produced the highest percentage of films with high critical quality. And basically, there's just a solid group of 20 other actors who also deserve it as much, if not more, than DiCaprio. And the number one film on his list, or the number one actor on his list, was Matt Damon, who is also nominated this year. That's the crazy part. Matt Damon's more due than DiCaprio. And I also think he has a much better performance, but I'll get to The Martian in a second. So it's just an incredibly frustrating narrative surrounding him. His speech is going to be incredibly pretentious. I'm not looking forward to it. Although in his Golden Globe speech, he did shout out to like Native American charities and stuff, which is a big part of this film, so that's good. He better do that again. He's not better. He can do what he wants, but it's I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of him, and I just find this narrative incredibly frustrating. So, I think his performance was as good as it could have been. I think he's completely fine, but it's just he's nothing to work with. This character's nothing. This is one of my least favorite of the group. It's not my least favorite, but it's bottom 3 probably. Okay, second most likely film to win, also a member of my bottom 3, is The Big Short. The Big Short is not like The Revenant at all. It's directed by Step Brothers director Adam McKay, who previously did all comedies. This is so weird that he's nominated for Best Director. More of a surprise to me than Lenny Abramson getting in for Room, who is also, I love that he was nominated, but it wasn't super expected. So The Big Short is a film about, is a very kind of, I don't know what the word is. It's about the financial crash, 2008 or whatever, and it's chronicling a few people who predicted it and profited off of it. It's a very cynical film about our financial system. It's one that employs a lot of non-traditional narratives, breaking the fourth wall. There's several segments where they take other celebrities to come in and explain financial concepts to you because they're too boring to understand otherwise. And he thinks it's important. It caused so many people to lose money, so we have to explain it with this celebrity. And it's largely comedic, but also somewhat of a drama film. There's a lot of great performances in here. Some of them are nominated in Best Supporting Actor, and 1 or 2, I can't even remember. Christian Bale is nominated, I'm not sure else. And so my evaluation of this film is this is one of the ones I liked least. I think it's good. The non-traditional narrative pisses me off a lot. I just absolutely hated the segments where someone explains to you on the screen. The problem is that it had no meaning. The thing is, what are you watching this movie for? Are you watching, as a documentary to learn about the financial crash? If so, then those segments are good. But I'm watching it for, narrative purposes. I wanted to tell a story, and those don't contribute to the story at all. So those segments really annoyed me. The other thing is that I think this film is very indignant and very, quote-unquote, preachy. Now, here's the thing. I agree with everything it's saying, right? It's something, I think it's important to be upset about it. I think this is probably the most important films of all the 8 in terms of societal impact. So if it won in that regard, I'd be fine with it. I'd also love to see Adam McKay win Best Picture. It'd be very funny. But in terms of film quality, I just don't see a lot of narrative storytelling value in preachiness, right? It's not even that it held a moral position. That's fine. It's just that it basically talked at the audience saying this is what you should think a lot, and I really didn't think that's good. I don't think that's good narrative. So, not a big fan of The Big Short. It's a film a lot of people like. It's generally a crowd-pleasing one, which is why it won the PGA. It's basically if The Revenant is 35 or 40% to win, this is 30 or 35% to win, right? They're very close, and this could very easily win. I think The Revenant is probably a better film than The Big Short, but I'd prefer to see The Big Short win, maybe. In some regards, in other regards, this would encourage these types of films being seen critically legitimate, which annoys me. Again, not that it takes a moral stance. Again, I agree with its moral stance, but that it feels the need to educate the audience more than tell them a story. I think that is a cardinal sin of narrative. So I was not a big fan of it overall. Okay. The next film of the three I mentioned, Spotlight, also has like a 25-30% chance to win Best Picture. So Spotlight is a film about the Boston Globe investigations into the 2001 investigations into the Catholic Church child sex abuse scandal. It's my favorite of these three. I think it's one of the best in this category, potentially even the second best. Spotlight's just a very super solid film. It's the opposite of The Big Short in that it's super traditional in its narrative. It never tries to do anything interesting. It's the most notable narrative thing about it is its subject matter, one, and how it treats it, and two, in how it spreads out its characters. There's really not any leading performances in Spotlight. They're all kind of supporting performances, and it's interesting. I think that this is good in that it is able to establish several strong characters, as opposed to basically every other film in this category, which basically has one strong performance than a bunch of other ones. So that's interesting. But none of these characters felt very deep to me. I didn't particularly care about any of them. That being said, the narrative was very good. The filmmaking extremely competent. And I just think the script is clearly the best of these three. This car had his hazards on while slowing down. That's interesting. Yeah, I really like Spotlight. It's not uplifting, obviously. It's very somber. It's kind of just there. That's the thing. This is the type of film... See, to me, Spotlight is the type of film that always wins the Oscar. Competent script, nothing exceptional, super solid film. Maybe you can contrive some message out of it. This is like the King's Speech of the year. In 2010, the King's Speech won over The Social Network, which is like the biggest Best Picture win atrocity that since I've been paying attention to it. The Social Network, kind of an outstanding film, and The King's Speech, a very good film, but not particularly great in any category. And this is The King's Speech. It's not actually. I don't think it's as good. I actually thought The King's Speech was very good. But this film's it's very good, very solid. Out of the three, I'd prefer this to win, because I think it's the best movie, and I think it's clearly the best movie. It's like a tier above the other two for me, maybe even 2 tiers above the other two. Everything about it's good. In terms of how it handles its subject matter, you could it very, very slightly takes a moral stance towards the end. There's a lot of like the people covering it. It's like, we should have covered this earlier. Or like, it's not just like they're the heroes. There's a lot of complicated portrayals of its journalistic leads, and like it's like we all suck. Society sucks. Like, for covering this up. It doesn't take any hard stances like super anti-religion. I think it'd be slightly more interesting if it got closer to that type of thing. But it's as it is. I think it does enough to create a truly great film, and I'm a big fan of Spotlight, and I hope it wins on Sunday. Okay, so those are the 3 major ones that could have any chance of winning. Now we're going to get into 2 or 3, which are also general crowd-pleasing films, which have an outside shot at winning. So let's go in Christopher Tapley's order and talk about, not that I followed his order for 1 and 2, let's talk about The Bridge of Spies next. So Spielberg, Tom Hanks, Bridge of Spies. It's a Cold War thriller, prisoner swap, etc. type of film. Another extremely competent film. This is similar to Spotlight, solid script, better characterization of its leads because it's more focused on Tom Hanks and Mark Rylance although he's definitely a supporting role, than Spotlight is with its spread out cast. It's very good, probably short of exceptional because it doesn't do anything particularly interesting. evocative emotionally, not really. Like, both of these films are effective, but not super effective. Like my favorite of the year, which we'll talk about later. But Bridge of Spies is very good. I think that this film contains my actor making the most out of a nothing role in Mark Rylance playing the captured Soviet spy. That is very little dialogue, very little to do, and he makes that character into something memorable from the film, even though I think it's basically nothing in the script. So I think that he should win Best Supporting Actor. And he has a shot at it, although not a great shot. Tom Hanks is great in it. It's obviously well-directed, well-written. It's just super solid overall. And because of that, and in a year with tons of split voting, it has an outside shot. I'd recommend Spotlight. I'd recommend Bridge of Spies. Bridge of Spies, super drama type film. If it's Cold War drama. If you're into that, you can check it out. You'll definitely like it if you are. So that's number 4. Number 5 is The Martian. The Martian is another one that I'd put into the Spotlight, Bridge of Spies type category. I think The Martian is slightly worse than those two films. The biggest flaws with The Martian to me are, like, it has a lot of auxiliary characters that have no reason to be in the film. There's a lot of segments which feel like more contrived or more meaningless than anything in those other two films. I think Matt Damon's performance in this is the best out of these three that I've mentioned. I think he's extremely good. I think without a super strong performance, this movie is worse. Because I think this movie's script is worse than those other two. So the fact that Matt Damon carries this as much as he does is very. It's very marking of a great performance, I think. Martian's much funnier than a lot of the films we've talked about, and I think that it's very good, and I think that it's got the space element, which to me is more interesting of a setting than a newspaper building or the period piece, right? Like, I think it's got a more inherently interesting environment, and I do think it's a fairly successful film. This is the type of film that you'd expect to win in a preferential ballot system, so it's a little surprising the Big Short won over this in the PGAs. I think that there's an outside shot at this winning. I wouldn't be shocked, although it'd be shocking if any of not top 3 won, but these two wouldn't be completely shocking. So I think The Martian's a very good film. Those more into the comedic spectrum would find this more appealing than super dramatic films, although it's obviously not a comedy like the illegitimate whatever's said it was, Golden Globe said it was. So good film. I think it's deserving of being nominated. I think all 3 of these films deserve to be nominated. I wouldn't have nominated Big Short or The Revenant, but these 3 I would have. Okay, so that's 5. There's 3 left. These are the ones that probably have no shot, but let's talk about Mad Max, which I think that this suffers because of the preferential ballot system. This is a film that a lot of people think is a masterpiece, and others are, especially the older members of the Academy, are not going to be super into. So, Mad Max is a pure action film. It's one of the first that I can remember in a while that's been nominated for Best Picture. A lot of people are calling this like the best action film of all time. I actually think its director, if I'm blanking on his name, has a shot at winning Best Director. Inarritu is the favorite, and he is second. George Miller. I believe he's second in line to win Best Director, kind of as seen of a culmination of this action series type thing. This isn't my type of movie. A lot of people listening to this are going to be huge fans of it. Not my type of movie. I think if you can tell already, I don't love this for the same reasons I don't love The Revenant. It's not a film that has a ton of narrative or characterization, like Shrub. I'm not as into action films as a lot of people. I acknowledge that it had a lot of action scenes, good action scenes, a lot of ones that I felt interested in. I think the aspect this movie I was most interested in was visually. It's super unique and interesting, and I really did think it was excellent visually. And I'm not the one to critique the action pieces of it, and so I'll leave that to other people. I will say that people are overrating this narratively and characterization-wise, and also as a feminist piece. I believe it is a minimally feminist piece. Obviously, the goal in the movie is like women overthrow the men, so it's feminist in that regard, but my big problem with it is that everything needs to be facilitated by our male lead. Literally everything. He needs to be there the entire time. It's very obvious they wouldn't have been able to succeed without him. He saves Charlize Theron's life. Like it's all. I guess that's spoilers. I don't know. It's all. It's to me. It's like the thing that pisses me off most is a film that like by men, like in written, directed, thinks it's feminist, but like needs a male character to facilitate everything. Like I've seen this before, and it pisses me off. So it's more feminist than everything except Room in this category. But people praise it as like the feminist movie of the year. No, absolutely not. Carol, like if anything, Carol. Okay, so don't give me that. And characterization wise, Max is a dumb character. He's nothing. Maybe if I've seen the other films in the series, he'd be more, but he's not a character. Charlize Theron's character, Emperor Ferosa. She's more of a character, but I also think she's not much of a character, which is going to piss a ton of people off. But she has a slight backstory that comes into play, towards the middle. She randomly shows up. We know she doesn't express any emotions. And she's the type of character that wouldn't express many emotions, but like you can still subtly express emotion. Nobody doesn't express emotion anyway. She wasn't super interesting to me. I thought none of the characters were. I think that character's overrated. I think the narrative's overrated. I didn't particularly like this film. Purely from ranking the 8 of them, this would probably be 8th out of 8. For me, again, though, it's not made for me. It's not my type. It's not my film. Whatever. Who cares what I think about it? It has an outside shadow winning because, again, there's a solid group of people who think it's a masterpiece. So maybe there's enough of them to propel it in a year with split voting. The last two are my first and second favorite of the category. So, and of course they have the lowest chance of winning, right? Spotlight's my number 3. So let's talk about Room. Or let's talk about... I actually think Room has a better chance of winning than Brooklyn. Let's talk about Brooklyn first, because Room's my favorite. Brooklyn is a... if you're looking for any sort of progressivism in a category with zero progressivism, you can look to Brooklyn, about a super positive piece about immigrants in a year which immigrants have been attacked politically. This movie stars Saoirse Ronan if not for Brie Larson in Room, would be my favorite performance of the year, but she's great, absolutely great in this. This is a film about she's coming from Ireland, she goes to Brooklyn, and her adjusting to life in America several decades ago. This movie is, a lot of people will be turned off by this movie's earnestness. This very much feels like a fluff movie, and if that doesn't bother you, then you're likely to love it. But if you're more into gritty movies, then and you can't necessarily appreciate earnest movies, this one's not going to appeal to you. Which isn't to say that everyone should love it. There's legitimate criticisms. The script isn't superb. I think it's very competent, and it's impressive in its subtlety, I'd say. Combined with super competent direction and an incredible lead performance, I think that Brooklyn is one of the best films of the year, and I'd recommend you see it. Last is Room, which is the one on this list you're least likely to have seen. Here's what I'll say. If there's any chance you have seen Room, I would recommend listening to nothing I say about it. This is the only one of the 8 where it really is bad if you know what the movie's about. Now, I'm going to be super vague about everything, but some movies are super experience-based on you not knowing what happens. And to me, I think Room, you can still enjoy the movie if you know what happens, but I feel like that adds a big component to it. Just my opinion. Okay. Room is probably the smallest of these films in terms of revenue. budget, stuff like that. It's my favorite film of the year, and it got nominated for Best Picture, so I was super happy about that, obviously. And I also think it's, in some aspects, one of my favorite films the past 10 years, right? But most films I've seen are the past 10 years, so that's basically every film, right? I'm young, so that's most films. I don't know. It's one I'll need to watch a few more times before I make a solid judgment on that. I don't know how much to say about it, right? Like, okay, seriously, turn it off if there's any chance you can see it. The first half of this movie is absolutely incredible, absolutely brutal. This movie is one of the most brutal films you'll ever see. It's like a super emotionally draining experience watching it. It's not fun, that's not the point of it. It's supposed to be this awful experience, and it's not like torture, but it's just evocative of very negative emotions in a way that, and if you're someone who, absolutely does not want that, then don't see it. If you're someone who it's possible to be triggered by a lot of serious topics, I would look up trigger warnings for this movie. I'm sure they're out there. There's a lot of trigger warnings that should be listed. What's so great about this film is the lead performances by Brie Larson, the best performance of the year. She's likely to win Best Actress, which is superb. I'm always surprised when the best performances actually win. That very rarely happens. Again, it's my opinion, but which is the best. But she's incredible in this. Jacob Tremblay, the child in this movie, is also absolutely incredible. I would have given him a Best Supporting Actor nomination, although I do think that his performance is much like any performance, is a component of the direction, the script, and his actual performance. This is one of my favorite directed movies ever. Lenny Abramson actually got nominated for this. I very rarely am able to discern good direction. I'm not a person who makes movies, so I'm not necessarily super aware of what comprises excellent direction. But this movie is what stands out about the direction, about the movie itself, is one, the way it's able to evoke such palpable, such extreme emotions from you. It's from the script, it's from the performances, especially it's from the direction from Lenny Abramson. Secondly is that it's such a unique, there's aspects of the direction that are so unique, the type of performance. He does this thing where he tries to make us see through the perspective of Jacob Tremblay, and it's such a risky thing to do. There's a lot of films that have tried to do the perspective of a child, and this one succeeds where others I have not seen work. It goes such a long way towards telling this movie's story emotionally. If we were watching this movie purely objectively and not necessarily from Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay's perspectives, then it would not work as much as it does. But because we see it through their eyes, quite literally in some shots, it's able to be one of the most evocatively emotional, I've said that several times, films I've ever seen. It's such an experience, and it's not only does it just deal with the experience, then it deals with the fallout and the emotions involving that. And a lot of people say that it turns soap opera-y in the second half, and I can see that a little bit, but it deals that the emotions are extreme in that circumstance, and that's what is going to happen. So it just covers the entire range, and it's just so incredible. It's such an experience. I can't recommend enough seeing this. If anything involving this sounds like something you might like, even if it might be a rough watch, it's totally worth it, and I think it's just absolutely incredible. I think that there's other people who hold this opinion, so because of that, there's the most outside shot of it winning, but it's really not going to happen. I really wish this would win because it's the best film of the year. It's so wonderful. It's for me, it's this, Room, Brooklyn, Spotlight, Bridge of Spies, and then Else, Martian 5, and then Else, right? And that's a pretty solid half of the movies I genuinely think are really great. So in this category, so Room is my pick, not my pick that's actually going to win, but it's my favorite film of the year. I really love it. I'd love to watch it again and talk about it more. But Room is my pick. Not my pick that's actually going to win, but it's my favorite film of the year. I really love it. I'd love to watch it again and talk about it more. But Room is my pick. It is that's the type of film that it's like you put off watching again because it's rough. It's pretty brutal. It's more brutal than The Revenant, which is also a brutal one to watch. But The Revenant has no payoffs emotionally for being brutal. It doesn't. It's not intellectually like. It's you don't think you gain like a unique emotional perspective from watching The Revenant, but Room you definitely do. So that's my opinions on this category. I think that covers all the subjects. I'm almost home. Let me know what you thought, what your rankings are of the Best Picture nominees, who you think's going to win. So my pick for your Oscar pool is The Revenant, but it's basically 50-50. It's not 50-50. It's 33-33-33, but it's The Revenant or The Big Short. I think take your pick. Personally, if there is any payoff towards picking a film that's going to be less picked than others, I would pick Spotlight. I actually think Spotlight very easily could win. And I would, in some ways, I'm going to be shocked if it doesn't, because it just seems like the type of film that should win this award. So that's not really a very logical perspective, but just feeling-wise, it really does seem like it. Okay, so I'm Dylan Hysen. Check us out at overlyanimated.com, even though this had nothing to do with animation. I recently put out a podcast with Sam talking about the best animated picture category, feature category, where we talk, in that I briefly mentioned that Inside Out was snubbed for Best Picture, so if you want to get my perspective on that, anything animated in this year's Academy Awards, listen to that podcast. Overlyanimated.com, you can support us on patreon.com/overlyanimated. See if again, no outline, let's see if I can remember the Patreon list. Thanks to our current patrons, Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, and Rachel. And aka Hey Now Fever, Mitch Gordon University, Beatrix Lestrange, Mailman, Buzz Lightyear, and Rachel Rose. Okay, so I actually think I hit the one. There you go. If this works, I have no idea if this is going to sound good. I mean, I tested extensively for this, but if it does work, then if it has any chance of working, then I'll do weekly ones of this about various topics. So let me know what you thought of this. Feedback appreciated. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.